All right, this is take 6. We are practicing today dividing whole numbers by decimals, which is pretty much similar sounding to what we did yesterday, only totally opposite, so of course it's completely different. Jokes, it's not that different. It's actually, it's a little different. So go ahead and put your name and your date on the paper. While you're doing that, I'm gonna move that. Okay, starting off, we're gonna use our example problem today as 80 divided by 3 2/10. So if we did it this way, this would be our whole number divided by a decimal. So our 80 is going to be the number in the 10, and the 3.2 is our divisor, or the number we're dividing by. So we're used to having our decimal in our dividend, where we just kind of bump it straight up. The problem is our decimal is actually in the divisor, which can't happen because dividing something by 3.2 means we're going to have to do a whole lot more division and stuff before we figure out how many times 3.2 goes into 8. So we want to get rid of this decimal that's in our divisor. So the divisor will need to change from a decimal to a whole number, which means we want to move our decimal one place to the right, which is not how decimals normally move. The way you're going to move your decimal is by multiplying it by a power of 10. Meaning you're going to multiply it by 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, million, and so on and so forth. You probably won't use that high, but it is possible. So if we're going to multiply by a power of 10, first I need to know what power of 10 to use. If I have 3.2 here, I want to move my decimal one place to the right. So I want my number to move one place. In order to move one place, I'm going to use the number 10 because it has 1 0. So if I multiply by 10, 0 times 2 is 0, 0 times 3 is 0. Moving over a place, so I add a placeholder. 1 times 2 is 2, 1 times 3 is 3. I add them, end up with 320. Which, well, my decimal moved over 2 places, but that's because I'm multiplying a decimal here. I gotta count how many digits are after my decimal. That's how many places I move Beyonce style. So this decimal is over here, so now I have 32. The problem is 80 divided by 3 2/10 is gonna be a number somewhere in your 20s. 80 divided by 32 is gonna be about twice. So those are two very different numbers. So whatever I had to do to the outside or the divisor, I'm going to have to do to the inside. So I'm going to multiply 80 by 10. Most of you are probably going, I already know the answer, which is great, but let me show you how you got it. 0 times 0 is 0. 0 times 8 is 0. Add a placeholder. 1 times 0 is 0. 1 times 8 is 8. Add it up. You get 800. And you'll notice there's no decimal, so I don't have to move anything. So really all I have to do here is add a 0. So you're going to have to add placeholders or zeros to the whole number. Now, if this seemed extremely confusing to you, this is really just the background information for what I'm about to do or show you. When you have a decimal in your divisor, you're going to move it to the end. However many spaces you move the decimal on the outside, you have to move it the same number on the inside. So the decimal will basically move the same number of spaces in both numbers. Which you're probably thinking to yourself, well, there's not a decimal here. But there is. It comes after the 0. And if I move my decimal over 1, I have to add a 0 in there. So pretty much you're just moving a bunch of stuff around. So now that you have no decimal in your divisor or your dividend, you're just going to divide like normal. So like here, you would have 32 goes into 80 twice. 3 times 2 is 64. Subtract, you're going to get 7 minus 6 is 1, 6. All right. 32 goes into 160. Probably going to be about, let's see, it went into 80 twice. So it's probably going to go in there for, I'm going to say 5 times. 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times 3 is 15, plus that is 16, so you get 0. So your answer is 25. Since there's no decimal anywhere, I don't have to worry about adding a decimal to my answer. All right, at the bottom I did put, to remember, DMSCB, which stands for divide, multiply, subtract, check, bring down. All right, let's try our first problem today. It's going to be 138 divided by 0.004. So now I got to move my decimal. I'm going to move it 1, 2, 3 spaces. So then I'm going to have just 4. If I move it 3 spaces on the outside, I have to move it 3 spaces on the inside. I like to do this. 1, 2, 3. And then I know my decimals at the end, and I just go back and make zeros out of those same loops. They're not the prettiest zeros, but that's okay because I'm going to rewrite it anyway. 138,000. So now I'm going to divide like normal. 4 goes into 13 3 times. You're going to get 12. You're going to subtract and get 1. Bring down for 18. 4 goes into 18 4 times. Multiply, you get 16. You're going to subtract. Get 2. And bring down your 0. 4 goes into 20 5 times. 5 times 4 is 20. When you subtract, you get 0. Zeroing down your 0. This goes into 0 0 times. 0 times 4 is 0. When you subtract, you get 0. Bring down your other 0. Pretty much, in case you've realized this by now, if you start ending up with zeros here, you can just add zeros to your answer, but I'm going to do this all the way out. 4 goes into 0 0 times. 0 times 4 is 0. When you subtract, you get 0. Again, there is no decimal in my dividend or in my divisor, so I don't need one in my quotient. I know this looks like a really big number, but if you think about it, this number is even way smaller than 1. So this is going to be, it's going to be divisible a lot of times, which is going to be a higher quotient. So go ahead and pause and try this one. Okay, so I made this one a little easier for you. This one, you're going to be having 0.3 going into 78. You're going to move your decimal 1 space over. So you're going to have to move it 1 space over here, which means you're going to end up with 3 going into 780. Or I should say 780, because if I say and, that means there's a decimal. So 3 goes into 7 2 times. 2 times 3 is 6. When I subtract, I get 1. Bring down my 8. 3 goes into 18 6 times. 6 times 3 is 18. You're going to subtract and get 0. Bring down your 0. 3 goes into 0 0 times. 0 times 3 is 0. Subtract and get nothing. I only stop when I have nothing left to bring down. So I have 260. I have no decimal in my divisor, no decimal in my dividend, so I don't need a decimal in my quotient. If you're having a hard time with the long division portion, you need to get online and look up long division on YouTube. I do not have a video for it. You're going to have to look on something else, or you can play some long division games. I'm not going to be teaching long division. That is not a 6th grade skill. It is something you have already been taught. If you need to practice and reteach, then you need to go back and do that on your own. Go ahead and do your 6 problems. If you can't fit it in the box and want to do it on the back, you surely are more than welcome to. I'll see you tomorrow.